So today we're going to be doing a quick video talking to you about how you can use trend lines to increase your success as a trader. I'm going to be giving you a step-by-step breakdown of exactly how I make use of trend lines, how I analyze the charts and look for really nice trends, and also how I spot breakouts. I'm going to try and make this video not too long for you, so at least you can take something home with you and learn this and try and use it for yourself for the week going forward. So stay tuned in this video and we'll get to the information right now. To start off with, to anyone who doesn't know who I am, my name is Morgan and I run MS Equities Trading. I'm the director of a company that focuses on teaching students about how to trade and invest in the financial markets, and we train students in about 28 countries around the world. I'm also a professional trader, so I manage capital for myself and clients based in the financial markets. What we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be talking about trading trend lines and how I specifically put down my trend lines. This is specifically based because of a question that a subscriber asked me talking about how I make use of trend lines to try and spot market structure. Now, market structure is a word that a lot of traders use, talking about exactly how they are identifying movement in the market based on technical analysis. Now, a lot of people know that I make use of indicators, I make use of certain strategies, quantitative analysis, and I also trade a lot on fundamentals and macroeconomics. But with the technical side, I also use trend lines a huge amount. So I'm going to be using this video as a step-by-step breakdown of how I use trend lines and how I use them to improve my trading success. In terms of trend lines, I've been able to find a huge amount of trading success on them. And what I'm actually going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be talking about a live trade idea that I'm currently trading. Actually, specifically, it's going to be on gold, which is actually why I decided to wear my rose gold watch today, because the video is on gold as well. So in this video, we're going to be breaking it down, talking to you about the educational aspects. This is not going to be me trying to give you investment advice or anything to do with trading advice. This is purely for educational purposes. Any investments or trades that you take must be based on your own understanding and your own decision-making process. It shouldn't be based on what I tell you. But once again, let's jump onto the charts. I'm going to get you started and give you a step-by-step breakdown of exactly what I use with my trend lines and why I use them. Okay, so onto the trading platform, we're going to start out with the absolute basics. Now, first things first is that on your trading platform, or as you can see on my trading platform, I have indicators open. I also have Bollinger Bands and moving averages on the chart. Now, one thing I do try and make use of is taking as much off the charts as possible, which cleans up the charts and gives me space to try and draw up my trend lines. So just to do it for you right now, I'm actually going to show you. So I'm just going to take off all these indicators. So you can see there's quite a few. I'm just going to be deleting all of them. This just makes it as simple as possible for me to have a simple chart up. And I'm actually going to show you. So now you can see there's nothing on the chart, and I'm just going to go template, save template, and I'm going to actually save this as a brand new template. I'm just going to call it blank white chart. So you can see that there's already one up, but I'm just going to save it again. And you can see that I've also got my trend line over here as well. So in terms of my trend lines that I make use of, for trend lines, you want to try and make use of a trend line that you can see that's in a nice, good color. I try and go for a level 2 to level 3 thickness. Sometimes I just use level 3, and blue I tend to find works best for me. In terms of parameters, you can also make use of using it as a ray. Now, what a ray basically means is you can see here the trend line stops at a certain level. If you right click and you go trend line properties, parameters, and you click ray, that means it extends far beyond. So it extends as far as the chart goes, which at least means that, let's say, for example, you're drawing a trend line way back here, it can help extend far beyond where you can actually extend with your own mouse cursor, and it just makes life a bit easier. So that does work as well. Now, in terms of the trends, a big part that I have a look at in terms of why I trade certain trends is, first off, I want to try and have a look at what the overall market performance looks like. So I usually land up going into something like the weekly charts, and I'll try and have a look at what's happening there. Now, in terms of trying to not overload myself with too much information, I'm not going to go far back in the charts. I'm going to try and focus on single trends. So let's say, for example, this current trend is what's happening here right now. So as many people know, this gold position has been a position I've been talking about for many months, trading it in and out. I've been long, I've been short, I've been all different kinds of positions in this market, and I'm still in positions. In terms of what I've been watching very closely, it's been identified on the daily charts. Now, what we can definitely see when we make use of something like a trend line is definitely identifying a bearish trend. Now, if we take the trend line right from the top to the bottom, I know this is very simple, but this is the first step I have a look at. Once I can see that there is an overall trend on the daily chart, I like to try and go down into the 4-hourly chart. And this is specifically because on the daily chart, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to draw the trend line perfectly. But if you go down into the smaller time frames, you can get a lot more accurate and draw right pinpoint to pinpoint on the tops of the candlesticks, which just makes life a little bit easier when you're trying to focus on being as accurate as possible. So if I draw it over there, I've got basically a trend where if I take a square, just to identify the points here, you can see that we've got levels where the market is testing over here. So we've got point number 2, we've got point number 3 over here, we've got a little bit of a breakout, and then we've got down here, we've got down here as well. But as we can see that there has been a break to the trend. So that's also important for us to label on this, this current chart, is that I'm going to obviously label the fact that we've had a breakout from this trend. So you can see how prices come all the way back down. We've got point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all those red squares are showing us where the market is testing that resistance level on that downtrend, but market is still coming down. But then we've got this breakout to the side over here. And as you can see, we've got a nice breakout where now the market is testing these upper levels. So we've got now the market making higher highs. So in terms of making the higher highs, what I'm going to do is label it in a different color. So let's say red is going to be going for the bearish and green is going to be going for bullish. So as we can see over here, let's actually make it a little bit of a darker color. I'm just going to put it in this color. We can see that here's number 1, here's number 2, and here's number 3. So basically what you can see I'm doing here is I first identified that there is an overall bearish trend. So that's point number 1. Number 2 is going to be using these red squares, which I know is very simple, but it actually works very well visually for your subconscious mind to identify the exact points. But using those red squares as showing bearish movement, and then when the market pivots, using those green squares as bullish movement. And the most important part is because when you can actually identify with squares exactly where your resistance and support trend lines have been tested, it at least means it's very easy for you when you're looking on the chart. You can open up your cursor and quickly go to that level, see what the price level is, see what the date and time is, and you can help identify those pieces of information for yourself. Whereas if you're not using that, sometimes you can actually be a lot slower with your technical analysis. Now, when you're on the charts, the most important part is trying to operate as efficiently and as quickly as possible. So that's just a simple reason why I make use of using those trend lines. Now, back on the charts, in terms of something else that I definitely identified was that we've also got a little bit of a wedge forming right over here. So as you can see on the chart, down at the bottom on the green, we are making higher lows every single time, but we are making lower highs as well. And basically what that is showing us is that we're going into a V-wedge formation. So this can sometimes be called a volatility funnel, it can be called a breakout, it can be called many different things that traders will make use of. But effectively what's happening is we can see that price action from this point here has tested this level and then is now coming back down onto these points here. So you can see that there are more lower resistance levels over here where price action is now moving lower and lower and is breaking out to the upside. So as we can see, price action has broken, come back out to the upside and formed a bit of a bearish cloud cover over here. Now, bearish cloud cover is just a simple example of price action that's showing more of a curve to the upside. So it's a bit of an upside down curve. And you can see how basically price action has tried to pierce back down to this level over here. So also if we make use of a trend line, we can also draw something a little bit smaller. So just having a look here, we've basically got a new level where we can see price action. If we zoom in a little bit more, price action has broken up, has moved above this resistance level, where we can see that the market's been making lower highs the whole time, and market has pushed higher, but now has hit those high levels and come back down. So what we can also see now is that price action on these levels is testing this area quite strongly. And you can see how we've basically got price action that's now forming lower lows as the price action moves lower back down to this level. So in terms of the reason why we might be moving back down to this breakout level is we could have seen this as a possible resistance breakout area. So this orange line is my horizontal line. So this can definitely be identified as a level of support and resistance. And what we can effectively see as a possibility where price action might try and break out and move a little bit higher, or possibly might try and break back down into this lower level over here. But what you can see is, don't get too confused with the fact that we've got so many different trend lines forming up over here. It's very important to try and identify the different levels that we have over here. So you can see that there are different formations that we have on the chart. And what I'm basically going to do is just break down the simplicity of these levels on the whiteboard for you, so I can actually show you the different levels that price action is showing. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing on this chart right now is giving you a breakdown of the formations that the trend lines have been showing. So I'm going to be popping up a screenshot of the chart and actually drawing the exact formations that the trend lines are showing. And this is just showing you a breakdown of exactly why using so many different trend lines is incredibly important. So what we can see coming down from the price levels is that we've got price action that's now come down from a high level over here. So that's important for us to identify that price action has moved down from a very high level, and price action is now coming down to a slight low level around about over here. And you can see how price action has tried to come back down from this level, this resistance level, form a support, and now has started to move up into this bullish area here. So it's important to identify that we've got a bearish trend over here, and we've got a break of the bearish trend. And a break of the bearish trend basically means that if we drew a dotted line over here and the bearish trend continued, price action has decided to break from this level right over here. So that's important for us to identify that this was the bearish trend, and the bearish trend has now been broken. So if we call this the bearish right over here, so you can see this line is the bearish, and now this is turned into the bullish. That's important for us to identify that this is the bearish and that's the bullish. So that is an important part of the chart, which I'll make sure to throw up a screenshot of right now. So you can see that also on top of that, even though we've got this bullish move right here, we have now also got a bit of a formation, a wedge that's forming up, basically trying to compress price action. So as price action has come down from this level, we can use the blue as, I'm going to use the blue as price formation. So as we've had price action come down from this level here, we've had price now break this point, which is a valid, very important part. So that is definitely formation. Point number one is that we have identified a bearish formation. Point number two is that the formation has now been broken. But point number three is going to be inside here, where basically we've got a formation forming where this has now been tested 3 times. So we've had 1, 2, 3. So we've had the market tested 3 times, and then now has moved right back up way above this level. So that is also important for us to realize that the market has not just tested the lower level, it's also tested the upper level. So if I actually do it exactly like it, we've basically had something like this, where price action has also tested the upper resistance level of this wedge. But now that we've had a price action break out, we've obviously had the market lose a little bit of energy and momentum. So what have we got? We've got the price now forming a bit of a bearish cloud cover. And this is basically what's happening is we have sellers that are upping their sell orders over here and moving their shorts, trying to see if they can come back down to this level over here. So this is also important for us to realize that this level, and also if we have a look at that resistance level, so that horizontal line, we can also see these two levels are going to be very significant levels for price action to come back down to and test. So let's say, for example, if we have a look back on that screenshot, I'll try and throw up a yellow box just to identify what I'm talking about. That point between where the resistance level of the wedge over here, as well as that support level and that which was the previous resistance. So if we have a look at that orange line, we've got previous resistance is now future support, which is called a Gartley. So that's a very simple technical formation. Now in terms of a Gartley, I'll try and throw up some information, probably a link down below to Investopedia, just explaining to you what a Gartley is, and I'll throw up a picture of it. But that is a simple formation of past resistance equals future support. So the possibility, now this is in terms of using these trend lines, the possibility is we could have price action come back down to one of these levels over here and possibly bounce and start moving higher. Now there is a possibility that we could have price move a little bit lower and come back down into this level where price action was previously, but there's also a possibility that this horizontal level, don't forget this is that horizontal, that orange line, this horizontal level could be strongly tested and market could actually hit this level and keep on moving higher. And then obviously important is going to be where this bearish cloud cover, I just usually call them bearish cloud, this would be the next target for price action to move to. So we're going to have price come back down, bounce off one of these levels and then move back higher. So the important part for us is to try and say to ourselves, are we able to try and get in a buy order somewhere inside this level over here where we could possibly see the market moves higher? So in terms of the prices that we might try and look at, if we could possibly get in a buy order over here on the horizontal line or possibly on this trend line, so this bearish resistance trend line, that could be a possibility, or anything inside this level over here, we can draw a green box and call that our entry zone. The possibility of getting that is quite high. And then in terms of holding it, we can hold it to this being first as target 1. So I'll call that target 1. And then this could possibly be called our entry zone. But it's still very important for us to realize that we still have this long-term bearish trend. So in terms of the bearish trend, it's also very important for us to identify that there are also going to be significant levels up on the bearish trend that we might need to focus on. So in terms of that bearish trend, we also need to see if there might possibly be a target 2, or even higher up, we can see a possible target 3, and that might be going all the way back to that historic bearish trend that is forming up. And now the reason why this is so important for us to make use of is because we use the trend lines, and the trend lines showed us this information. Without making use of those trend lines, which work so well for us, it probably would have been very difficult for us to actually see exactly what was happening. So as you can see, this video is quite a simple and interesting breakdown of how I make use of trend lines. Now, in terms of trend lines, the most important thing I can say to you to remind you in this video is firstly, clean up your charts, make sure you've got a blank chart that you can make use of. Secondly, make sure to use the trend line that suits you best, whether you want the long line, which is the ray, or you just want a shorter line. The next one is make use of those squares. Most importantly, those squares are going to help you in terms of identifying exactly where the resistance levels and support levels are being tested. Using different colors like red for bearish and green for bullish, at least trains your subconscious mind to understand exactly what pieces of the market you're looking at. And most importantly is to make sure that you can identify where structure is breaking, creating new formations, or creating bullish moves in those bearish trends. So once again, we've identified that the market had previously had a bearish trend, broken out into a wedge, broken back up, formed bearish cloud cover. Now what are we doing? We're trying to see what happens next. Possibly we could see that bounce. So for myself, what I'm doing is I'm adding my buy positions lower down now, and I'm seeing if possibly we can see the market bounce and move bullish again, possibly retest the previous high of the bearish cloud cover, or move back up to the previous high levels from where that trend began, that bearish trend began. So that's just a simple breakdown of another video in terms of trend lines and exactly how you'd be able to use them. To anyone who wants to actually find out a bit more, let's say for example you've got a question of something that you want me to answer, make sure to ask the question down in the comments below, and what I'll do is actually make a video on that question for you. And most importantly, please make sure to like this video if you thought it was helpful. That always helps us out a lot. And make sure to subscribe to this channel because you can keep updated with the weekly educational content. I'm trying to make sure we can upload anything between 3 to 5 videos every single week, but it is quite difficult given the fact that I'm training my students so much. So to anyone as well, if you are interested in finding out a bit more about how we train students in 28 countries around the world, you can go over to our website, www.msequitiestrading.com. You can have a look at how we train students via an online training platform, how we also have specialized mobile apps that allow students to train from anywhere at any time, as well as anything to do with our private coaching program and how we train students over a 12-month period. Once again, everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this video, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers for now.